Hello. Thank you for joining us for this virtual conversation on how vendor-customer collaborations work in the telemedicine market space. My name is Jordan Berg, and I'm a technology assessment specialist at the Telehealth Technology Assessment Center. We work with many organizations who are trying to evaluate, purchase, and deploy telemedicine technologies. And for many of these organizations, this is the first time they've approached a telemedicine vendor. Experience can be a little unnerving if you're not sure what to expect. And our purpose with these conversations is to demystify some of the vendor-customer process and to help customers more efficiently navigate the vendor selection. We hope that this conversation is valuable to you and helps you move forward in your telemedicine journey. I want to thank you for joining us for another of our vendor interview discussions. We have Erik Hafkey, who is the Chief Commercial Officer for Remidio Innovation Solutions. Thank you for joining us, Erik.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
First question that we have for you today is, when you're approaching a new customer, maybe one that has never worked with a telemedicine vendor before, or potentially one that's trying to expand their services, are there any questions that you routinely ask those new customers?
Yeah, I always start off with, what are they trying to accomplish? It's important to know the scale and scope of what they're trying to achieve, how many participants they're going to be looking to work with, even any financials that they may have if known. I always ask, what does success look like for them? What's going to be the reach of the project? How are you going to measure improvement in care? Things like that. So those are some of the questions that I always ask. Are the goals the same for all the stakeholders? For instance, there's usually many people involved and many organizations involved in these decisions. What are the different viewpoints and how are they all aligned?
So when you're talking to customers, what are some of the questions that you routinely get from them? And are there kind of themes that you see in some of the questions that they ask you initially?
Yeah, I think that invariably it boils down to the very first question is, can your product do this and what are the prices? They also ask about any kind of IT concerns. Those are the routine things. Obviously, I'd like for them to go a little bit further because there's a lot more differentiation between vendors and products, but those are the routine questions we get.
The next question we have is, what kind of questions do you wish that customers would ask you initially when they're kind of starting this process?
I would really like for them to say, here's what I'm trying to do. Have you ever seen anything like this? How would you solve it? How do your products fit into this particular scheme of what we're thinking? Just know that vendors see all kinds of problems, situations. They've encountered all this. They're a great resource. And they may have a little bit different idea of the big picture than what you have when you're just starting off your project. Good vendors really will help you solve the problem with their products. I find top vendors are always helping you see all the options that are available for you. And you can't be afraid to have an open discussion with the vendors about the different things that you're seeing between products. How does one product compare to another? I think sometimes there's a concern of, I'm going to offend somebody if I start talking about another company's products. But trust me, we've heard it all before. We want to have that open dialogue. And I think that's the way that a customer really comes to a better decision.
When a customer comes to you and they're beginning to navigate this path a little bit, what are some materials that would be helpful for them to have prepared and ready, maybe even documented in a document form that they can kind of hand off to you?
What a customer can have prepared. Usually, these decisions have many people involved. I think it's important for there to be have clarity around what this project is, even have the goals written out. Ensure that everybody is on the same page as far as the goals, the needs, the vision of the project, and any concerns. I think those are all critical. And I think there also should be some sort of agreement on what the next step is for that goal. You have this foundational information. It makes it so much easier for you to move into having discussions with the vendors. You don't have to keep doubling back and deciding, oh, this is a new goal or that's a new goal or we didn't think about that. But if you have those foundational goals and objectives sort of listed out in front, then you can really go forward with confidence with the vendors. You really have that project at hand.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point about if you can have that core set of information kind of planned and ready to go, then if you want to expand your scope or you want to expand kind of the concept of what you want to do, it's easier to do that. And you don't have to worry quite as much about having to backtrack and go back again.
But I think it's important once you have those foundational beliefs, those foundational understandings, it allows you to be prepared to have more in-depth conversations with vendors and really be able to search for alternative solutions as well, as opposed to just getting fixated on, I want this product to do this. It gives you the opportunity to really search the market for new opportunities. There's going to be new technology, new devices, new concepts, new software constantly coming out. I even find that. I'm in the technology business, and there's always something new, and it may add a different twist or a new twist to a project that you felt pretty confident you knew what you wanted, but it gives you the opportunity to look at these new opportunities very confidently.
I think that the kind of those two dimensions, right? Understanding your organizational capabilities, what you're able to do, and then understanding the capabilities of the market and the product. If you know both those things, you can do a lot and you can expand, but unless you kind of have a really good understanding of who your organization is, what your capabilities are, and at least a passing knowledge of what's available on the market, it's hard to pair those two things. So you've had a lot of experiences working with a variety of different customers. Are there any common mistakes you see organizations have when they move into selecting technology?
So I think one of the common mistakes, outside of just focusing only on price, is that often I find organizations overestimate their own internal capabilities. It's not that the staff aren't highly capable. They often can do just wonderless things. It's that time is a finite quantity, and as you prioritize projects and you start getting work done, all of a sudden a simple interface that could have taken only 2 days now takes 6 months, and it puts the project in crisis. I think being realistic about what you're able to do and how much time you have to do it is important on the customer side. Another common mistake I see that I probably would want to make sure that we address, and that is making sure you have the right stakeholders in the decision group as you move forward. I find that it's invaluable to have people with the experience and knowledge of what's currently happening in the clinic to help make this process smooth. They understand the elements of the exam or the screening process, and they understand that just taking 1 more minute per patient is going to be adding 20 to 30 more minutes of work at the end of a busy workday. You have to be thinking of what the actual clinical workflow is right now, and how are these changes going to upset or be integrated into those steps, those workflow processes.
From your perspective, what are some of the changes or effects that you've seen from COVID-19 with your customers?
Well, it's absolutely a driving force. Healthcare won't be the same from this point on. Activities that were taking place in the clinic and with staff actually in the clinic may not even take place in the clinic. If there's a way to do portions of the exam for that patient at home or in a remote location, this is going to happen. This is happening worldwide, and it's not just the United States. And being able to be at arm's length from a patient is, particularly in my business in eye care, where typically the provider and staff are very close face to face with the patient. That's got to change as well. So now you have to build in technology that can give a distance to that provider from the patient. I think another important change is going to be, and this has been a good thing, is that how the provider can communicate with the patient and how there can be this transfer of information has changed as well, with some of the relaxation of the HIPAA compliant and being able to use things like TeamViewer or other remote viewing applications. Is this going to be an ongoing capability, or is it going to be something that's only for the temporary period while we go through this COVID crisis? That remains to be seen. Nonetheless, the baseline has been set. This remote viewing of patients, whether it's in a remote clinic or at home, these are parts of what will happen in examinations going forward. We as a vendor are trying to find solutions that provide these remote viewing capabilities to our providers, whether it's, in India, they're doing it in pharmacies. They're doing it in various locations. Here in the US, we're also doing it in pharmacies, but we may be actually moving it all the way into the patient's home. So being able to do some of these examinations at a distance is going to be a critical piece. And I think you're also going to see a change in how we talk about an exam, whether it's a synchronous exam or an asynchronous exam, and how those different elements are going to change the interaction with staff and patients.
There's a lot of functionality that our providers and our customers have seen kind of rapidly deployed during the COVID-19 crisis that has really put them in a different headspace about what technology can do and how that can function. And I think both from the industry and the clinical, the vendor space, we're all going to have to look at what does this mean for our delivery of care models, and what does this mean for the products that we develop for folks.
Agreed.
Well, I really want to thank you for your time, Erik, and I really want to thank Remidio for allowing you to come and speak to us about your unique perspective with vendor technologies and working with customers, and how we can really improve and make those collaborations very fruitful. Do you have any other kind of last thoughts or things that you'd like to say before we wrap up today?
Well, I really appreciate you creating this platform. I think it's a huge advantage for people within your organization, and I'm looking forward to participating more with you in the future. Thanks for the time, Jordan.
Thanks, Erik.